Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Lara.
And I'm Kayla.
We are back with part 2 of Ellen Greenberg, and we're still missing Krista, but we promised to have this in your feed same day. So we are recording part 2. If you haven't listened to part 1, go listen to that and come right back to hear the rest of this crazy case.
And we're all flabbergasted about.
Yes. I need to know.
No one's happy about it.
I know. We're outraged.
I'm so excited to hear. She said it's been...
There's been progress in 2025. So also, if you haven't listened to this story in a while, but you've heard it before, we've got updates.
Yes.
So we will.
Always good.
Yes.
Maybe.
I mean, we haven't gotten entirely back to where we want to be, but progress is progress.
Progress is progress.
Right. So,
well, let's get started.
When we last left, we mentioned that on April 4th, 2011, they changed the case from homicide to suicide and case closed.
It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Me 3.
And it's just so uncommon. With that single change, that meant there was no further criminal investigation. Philadelphia police ceased treating Ellen's death as a homicide case. For Sam, this meant he was no longer under scrutiny. And like we said, he's never been charged or named as a suspect. He soon moved on with his life. I mean, probably not soon. I'm sure that was devastating and horrifying. Reports say that he moved out of Philly and he has since married someone else. For the Greenberg family, however, the nightmare was just beginning. They simply could not accept this finding, and I don't blame them.
No.
As Ellen's father would later say, we now know, as far as I'm concerned, this was not a suicide. The Greenbergs, in their grief, began to question whether the investigation into Ellen's death had been handled properly. Disturbingly, they found several missteps and oddities. The crime scene was compromised so early. The day that they were doing the autopsy, we didn't know if this was homicide or suicide. And like we said, it would be ruled a homicide for the next 6 weeks. The apartment was released from police and cleaned professionally. The building maintenance, with police permission, sanitized the scene on January 27th. This happened on the evening of January 26th. Yeah.
So not even 24 hours later.
No.
How does that make any sense?
It doesn't. It's completely misstep. Huge mistake.
There was so much evidence that they could have gotten from there.
They didn't even have a search warrant yet. So they hadn't got a search warrant to collect the evidence, but they were like, go clean it.
Gosh.
So
that's awful.
Yeah. The crime scene unit came back on the 28th because now it's ruled a homicide. They had their warrant and evidence that they might have gathered was gone. As one report put it, this was a huge, huge blow to this case. If Ellen's death had been a homicide, critical forensic evidence like blood spatter patterns, trace DNA had all been wiped away.
It just makes me sick. How awful for her family.
Mm-hmm. Will you be outraged?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't believe that they didn't even wait for the autopsy report to come back.
Yeah. Also, on the 27th, Sam's uncle, who is a prominent judge, entered the apartment and removed both Ellen and Sam's laptops, as well as their cell phones and personal papers.
Why?
He said he did it to retrieve work items for Sam and personal information for the Greenbergs. But yeah.
That's kind of suspicious.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Police realized important evidence had walked out the door and demanded the items be returned the next day on the 28th. They were returned, but again, chain of custody, it's lost. And why was a relative allowed unsupervised into a crime scene to take items?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they weren't considering it a crime scene.
Right.
Which is so unfortunate.
Without the autopsy coming back.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't even know if the stab wound to the back of her neck had severed that brainstem, spinal cord.
Yeah.
If it had, she wouldn't have been able to do any other.
Right.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so they didn't even know that yet.
Wow.
Yeah. This didn't feel good to the Greenbergs, obviously. And they kind of had the feeling that undue influence might have been exerted because he was well connected in legal circles.
Yeah.
And it could just be a coincidence, but come on. Right?
Seems a little suspicious.
Mm-hmm. There's contradictory accounts of the door. So initially, Sam told police and on the 911 call that a security guard was with him when he busted open the door latch. 2 of Sam's relatives even claimed they were on the phone with him during that moment. 2 of them. But later, the apartment's manager said the latch's position didn't prove that Ellen had locked it. And crucially, the security guard stated that he was not present when Sam broke in. Security.
Wait, he wasn't? I thought he went down to get the guard and get help.
That's what he said. But then the guard said, no, I wasn't there. Security camera footage backed this up. It showed Sam on the elevator alone just before making the 911 call. Phone record analysis by CNN also contradicted the relative's claim of being on the phone with Sam at the break-in time. These inconsistencies fueled the idea that the latch door might have been staged or exaggerated to point to suicide. A private investigator later examined police photos of the door, at least they had gotten that, and concluded the latch was only partially dislodged, not completely ripped off of its screws, as one would expect if forced open by him slamming his whole body weight into the door. In fact, 3 of the 4 screws remained in place. How? 3 out of 4? Don't you have 2 and 2?
Yeah.
Which led the investigator, whose name is Tom, and he was a former state police officer, to state the only way you could open that lock is if one or the other piece is completely dismounted. That bar isn't going to open for you any other way. And since the latch was still mostly attached in photos, Tom suspected the door might have already been opened or unlocked, and the latch damage could have been staged. It's controversial, but it underscores how every piece of this case is subject to reinterpretation when looking back at it. There's a lack of fingerprinting, which we kind of mentioned in the first part. Basic forensic tests were not done. For example, the knife in Ellen's chest was never fingerprinted by police. We
Outrageous.
are assuming, that they assumed only Ellen's prints would be on it, since only her DNA was found on her clothing. But failing to dust the knife for prints meant losing a chance to see if perhaps someone else had handled it. If this were a murder, the killer could have wiped it, which they might have seen, and they might have seen a lack of her fingerprints.
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't know.
Right. And we don't know what knife she was using to cut up fruit. It might not have even been that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use that one to make a fruit salad.
A serrated knife? No.
A 10-inch serrated
No.
knife, that's to cut up bread.
Yeah.
Obviously. Maybe tomatoes. But it is just outrageous that this detail was left unexamined.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Greenbergs later learned that there was this closed-door meeting on February 10th between key officials, including the medical examiner, the chief medical examiner, police detectives, and others. And shortly after this meeting, the cause of death was officially changed to suicide. In the Greenbergs' 2022 lawsuit, which we'll get to, they allege this meeting was unprecedented and suspect that undue pressure was placed on the ME to change his ruling. Dr. Osborne himself would later admit that he changed the manner of death, quote unquote, after meeting with the police, a statement the family interprets as confirmation that law enforcement pushed for the suicide classification. But why?
Fishy.
Yeah. All of these factors led Josh and Sandy, Ellen's parents, to feel that the investigation was terribly mishandled and perhaps even deliberately botched or covered up to avoid admitting a mistake, which is generous of them. In their view, once the police latched onto the suicide theory, they ignored or downplayed any other evidence to the contrary, and the system closed ranks to make that ruling stick. Sandy later said in an interview, "It's hard to believe. It's even harder to believe that the situation is still not resolved. The family was left in this agonizing limbo, officially told their only child took her life in a violent manner that none of them believed possible. And if she was murdered, that meant a killer walked free while authorities wrote it off.
Question.
Yeah.
Did the medical examiner ever explain why he changed his ruling from homicide to suicide?
After a closed-door meeting with the police.
That's all he said was after that meeting?
We'll get to him again in a bit. He doesn't work there anymore. He's now down in Florida, but he'll come back around.
Okay.
But unfortunately, he's working in a different jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So his thoughts on the matter now don't officially count. So faced with this outcome, the Greenbergs resolved to fight for the truth. As Josh put it simply, we want to know what happened to our daughter. This began a years-long journey of private investigation, media outreach, and legal battles. The Greenbergs essentially took on the role of detectives and advocates in their daughter's case, pouring their time and resources into it. They estimate they've spent more than $500,000 on their quest for answers, which they should not have had to do.
No.
So early on, they hired their own experts to re-examine all the evidence. Among them, we have Dr. Cyril Wecht, a renowned forensic pathologist famous for high-profile cases, was asked to review Ellen's autopsy and case file. Wecht concluded the case was strongly suspicious of homicide, writing, "I do not know how they wrote this off as a suicide." He pointed to the lack of a suicide note and the improbability of these self-inflicted wounds to the back of the neck. In a 2012 report, Wecht flatly stated, "It is my professional opinion that the manner of death of Ellen Greenberg is strongly suspicious of homicide." His name and credibility brought attention to the case. It's hard to ignore somebody so renowned in their field saying this was likely no suicide. They also consulted with Dr. Henry C. Lee, who is a legendary forensic scientist, famous from the O.J. Simpson trial and others. He reviewed the evidence for the family. He concluded that the number and types of wounds and the bloodstain pattern observed are consistent with a homicide scene. In other words, the distribution of stab wounds and how blood was found was more aligned with an attack than self-harm. One detail, Ellen had stab wounds through her clothing. Dr. Lee and others noted this is unusual for suicide. Typically, someone would move clothing aside if they're inflicting wounds on themselves.
That's an interesting note.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I would think of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I just wouldn't think about that, but that's interesting to note.
Yeah.
I was thinking like with self-harm stuff, people usually are trying to hide it, like on the inside of the thighs or like on the inside of the arms or things like that. So that does make sense. But if they were trying to complete suicide, I might think maybe they wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
But if it,
I think that's just not normally seen.
maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know.
As opposed to the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
They also consulted with Dr. Wayne Ross, who's a forensic neuropathologist. He conducted an in-depth examination in 2017. He studied a piece of Ellen's spinal cord and neck. Dr. Ross found evidence of a small mark on the spinal cord consistent with a stab wound, implying one of the neck stabs may have actually penetrated further than initially thought. If a stab did hit her spinal cord, Ross pointed out that it would have caused severe pain and maybe even neurological dysfunction like partial paralysis. This would make it highly unlikely that Ellen could have continued to sustain suicide stabbing after that point. Ross also noted evidence of possible strangulation. He found tiny hemorrhages on her neck that could suggest she was choked, and he believes Ellen's death was staged to look like a suicide. The strangulation idea comes from certain findings like the thyroid cartilage bruise and a pattern of neck wound, though not conclusively proven. That's his theory that he offered. They also consulted with private investigator Tom Brennan, who is a retired police detective. He spent years combing through records and photos. He raised many of the issues that we discussed. The door latch consistency. He found that the knife block was tipped over. He also looked at blood evidence. He's the one who trained in covert entries and said the latch likely wasn't broken open as claimed. Brennan became an outspoken advocate, often saying the cause of death must be changed from suicide to allow proper investigation. We have to get the cause of death changed, he said. Then we can go about the whodunit.
I was thinking too about the latch. Could it be possible that Sam was trying to open it since he was locked outside for so long? Or do they not think that?
I mean, it is possible.
That's one thing I was thinking about. Like if I were stuck outside, I'd be like,
well, with
get my hand in there.
Type of latch, I mean, he could have opened it a little bit and tried to get his hand in there, or could have used a credit card to stick through and push it open a little bit.
That's what I was wondering, because he was stuck outside for a long time. So that's what they're saying.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Maybe it was slightly opened by the time he just tried to push through.
That could be. Yeah. But he would have had to either bust at least 2 of the screws off. Or why wouldn't you say you know how to open that kind of lock? So you used a credit card?
Yeah, so I was trying to open it.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because that one's easy to kind of, if you do it right, you can just push.
If he went to the gym in his building,
he may not have had a wallet on him.
Right. I don't like taking mine when I go to the gym, and that's not even in my house. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
But
maybe.
That's just one thing I was thinking of.
My phone is my wallet, so I always have my driver's license on me at all times. So,
which would work the same.
But me too.
Yeah. The family also talked to other experts. They commissioned a 3D photogrammetry study of Ellen's wounds. They used modern technology that wasn't available in 2011. So they actually created a 3D model of Ellen's body with all of the wound trajectories. This analysis showed that not all of her wounds could have possibly been self-inflicted, given normal range of motion. For example, some of the back wounds would require angles that were impossible for Ellen to stab herself, especially after multiple other injuries. This 3D evidence became a key point in their legal case. There's also, which we haven't mentioned, the way the blood was on her showed that she had been moved after sustaining some of those wounds, or all of them. There's like a blood drip that was going down the side of her face, but then when she was found, she was kind of sitting up against the cabinets. Gravity doesn't work that way.
No, this makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So with all of these findings, all of the experts that the Greenbergs had work on this case, they started pushing it into the public eye. In March 2019, so 8 years after Ellen's death, the Philadelphia Inquirer ran a front page investigative story re-examining all of the suspicious circumstances. There's a piece by writer Stephanie Farr that brought the case to wide attention. It quoted Dr. Wecht expressing bafflement at the suicide ruling and revealed that even the consulting neuropathologist originally cited in 2011 that there was no recollection of him ever being asked to review Ellen's case, which cast doubt on the thoroughness of the original investigation.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. The Inquirer's story, and then others that followed, openly questioned accident. I mean, come on, how's that an accident?
No.
Suicide or murder. The media attention snowballed. True crime TV shows and podcasts featured Ellen's story, from Dr. Oz to Dateline to Oxygen's Accident, Suicide, or Murder series. The case had all of the elements that captivates and frustrates the public, right? Online, #JusticeForEllen, a movement that gained traction. The Greenbergs set up a Facebook page and a change.org petition. They had gathered over 167,000 signatures, urging officials to reopen the case. It was clear that many people found the suicide ruling deeply questionable.
It's so hard, though, and so sad, because even if they do reopen it, a lot of evidence was lost.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you wonder, yes, they never tested the knife. Did they hold on to it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Did they let the cleaning people sanitize it and put it back in there?
Right. I mean, what about the knife block? It's tipped over.
Yeah.
Did she tip it over? Did someone else? I think
so
much.
The
knives were in the sink and the rest on the counter.
Yeah. There's so much they could have gathered from that scene.
Yeah.
That was lost.
Fingerprints
I don't know
on
how.
The doors. Yeah.
I hope that they did get it reopened, but
how do they find who did it now?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. You would hope that some evidence is saved, but obviously they couldn't even take the crime scene unit into the apartment.
Yeah.
Or really go through electronics. Like they did go through her computer, but that was
someone else had it for how long?
Exactly. And what about Sam's computer,
Yeah.
In 2018, the Philadelphia Attorney General's office, who was led by Josh Shapiro at that time, took over review of the case from Philadelphia authorities. This usually happens if there's a potential conflict of interest or at the request of the family. However, in 2019, the AG's office announced it had closed the case again, still concluding the evidence pointed to suicide. Obviously, this was a huge blow to the family. The state's highest law enforcement wasn't budging from the original stance. I remember when that happened, being so outraged. In October 2019, the Greenbergs took the step of filing a civil lawsuit against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and Dr. Osborne. Their goal, legally changing the manner of death ruling. Essentially, they asked the court to change Ellen's death certificate from suicide to homicide or undetermined. This lawsuit cited the new evidence, like from that 3D analysis we talked about, showing some wounds could not have been self-inflicted. It also included the experts' conclusions and the fact that Dr. Osborne allegedly admitted he changed the ruling under police insistence. The suit argued that the ME's change was improper and that an official agency cannot simply label a homicide as suicide if it's scientifically unsupported.
Exactly.
Yes. It's important to note that challenging a medical examiner's ruling in court is also very unusual. The city's lawyers fought back, saying essentially that a coroner or ME's determination is discretionary and unassailable. In August of 2021, a city attorney wrote, they essentially asked this court to sit as a super medical examiner to overrule the determination of the medical professional vested by state law with the sole responsibility to determine manner of death. In other words, the city argued the family had no legal right to second-guess the ME's call. This set up a significant legal debate in Philadelphia about whether and even how a family can force a change to a death certificate. In early 2020, a judge allowed the Greenberg suit to proceed past initial motions to dismiss.
Wait, we jumped from 2021.
Yeah, just the quote about it.
Oh,
like what they were asking for. Yeah, no, you're right, though. In early 2020, a judge had allowed the Greenberg suit to proceed past initial motions to dismiss, which was a small victory indicating the court saw some potential merit or at least novel questions in the case. A trial was anticipated in the coming years, though delayed, like we always see, by legal maneuvering. In 2021, the Commonwealth Court, which is an appellate court in Pennsylvania, was expected to rule on whether the family's challenge could go forward. This was still unresolved in 2022. The Greenbergs hoped a favorable ruling would set a new precedent, allowing families to contest a medical examiner's decision if it was arbitrary and capricious. Meanwhile, the Greenbergs launched another lawsuit in 2022 because their one has just been sitting, right? This one targeted the city of Philadelphia, the police department, and various officials, accusing them of gross negligence and intentional infliction of emotional distress in how Ellen's case was handled. Essentially, they were alleging that a cover-up had taken place, that officials falsely labeled Ellen's death as suicide in order to cover up a botched homicide investigation.
Seems plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like exactly what happened.
This civil suit sought damages for the emotional pain caused by the mishandling and the prolonged injustice for Ellen. It was another avenue to apply pressure to reopen the case. It's not that they, wanted money or anything. They just want a real investigation to go forward.
Yeah,
I would too. By mid-2022, there were signs that their persistence was paying off. In August, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, who by then was Josh Shapiro, who had already ruled no on the case a few years before. Because of that, he recused himself due to the appearance of conflict of interest. They handed the case to a fresh set of eyes. The Chester County District Attorney's Office took a look at this, which is a neighboring jurisdiction, and they agreed to reopen the investigation into Ellen's death, which was a significant development. Finally, a law enforcement agency was actively reinvestigating. The Chester County detectives spent over a year re-examining everything. They reviewed all prior investigation files, they conducted new interviews, they consulted an independent forensic expert. The Greenbergs, for the first time in a long time, felt hopeful that an unbiased agency might crack the case or at least acknowledge the flaws in the original case. Mm-hmm. However, in November of 2024, the Chester County DA announced a disappointing update. After a thorough review, they concluded they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime occurred.
So frustrating.
So frustrating.
That's so sad because of all the evidence that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't see how.
No,
and
I don't either.
Changes to investigation techniques, changes to the DNA, so many. Even the 3D photo that they did, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't available then.
Yeah.
So they determined that they could not file any criminal charges at this time, and they were effectively pausing the investigation or placing it in inactive status. The Chester County DA emphasized this wasn't a total closure since there's no statute of limitations on homicide. They left the door open if new evidence emerges. But as of late 2024, legally, they decided there would be no change, no criminal case, and Ellen's death certificate still said suicide. It's so crazy.
It is.
I don't know what new evidence they could get.
That's what I was
losing
thinking.
so much of it, right?
Yeah.
After so much time.
Yeah. One bright spot came from the Greenberg civil litigation front in December of 2024. A Philadelphia judge ruled that the emotional distress lawsuit could proceed to trial against most of the defendants. The judge even ordered that Dr. Osborne, the pathologist, and Dr. Sam Galino, who was the chief ME, must testify under oath about their actions. This was a huge deal. It meant these officials could be questioned about why they did what they did back in 2011. Jury selection was set for February of 25. The Greenbergs saw this trial as a chance to finally get some of this evidence public and get some form of accountability.
Yeah.
Josh said heading into it, I'm hoping we're going to prove that Ellen did not commit suicide. That's what this is all about, justice for Ellen. In February of 2025, so right around the 14th anniversary of Ellen's death, they had a series of developments that really supported the Greenbergs' long fight. On the eve of the emotional distress trial, so literally days before jury selection, the Greenbergs reached a settlement with Philadelphia city officials. The city agreed to reopen and review Ellen's death through the medical examiner's office. In addition, the Greenbergs received a modest monetary payment. Reports said that this was not about money for them. They really just wanted an official reexamination. Crucially, as part of this settlement, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office essentially said that it would take a fresh look at the autopsy findings, given all the evidence that the Greenbergs have been able to find on their own with their own money.
Yeah.
Effectively reopening the case from a forensic standpoint.
I mean, that's good. And that's great that they did that. But I still would love to hear from those two under oath.
Exactly. And you kind of wonder if that's why they settled.
Could be.
Yeah. They probably don't want them under oath.
Right. And they kind of got part of what they want by having it reopened. But I agree with you 100%.
Find out exactly why he changed that ruling.
And I'm sure if they went to trial, there's some version where it's not reopened.
Yeah.
So you probably have to take it. But yeah. However, along those lines, on January 31st, 2025, Dr. Osborne signed a sworn affidavit stating he no longer believes that Ellen died by suicide. In this document, he wrote, "It is my professional opinion Ellen's manner of death should be designated as something other than suicide." He explained that after reviewing new information, his perspective changed. He cited being made aware of several points that were originally unclear or unknown to him. Questions about Sam's exact actions that night, like whether he was truly witnessed entering the apartment, like he said, whether the door was truly forced open or not, whether Ellen's body had been moved, like we mentioned, and the findings of a neuropathologist, Dr. Lindsay Emery, who evaluated Ellen's cervical spine segment. All of these gave him doubt that it was a suicide.
Gave him doubt again?
Right, because that was his first ruling.
Yeah.
That's what he initially thought.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Osborne concluded that if he knew then what he knows now, he would not have classified it as suicide. This reversal is extraordinary. It's very rare for a medical examiner to change their official stance after so many years. And while Dr. Osborne's change of heart does not automatically change the death certificate, specifically because he no longer works for Philly ME's office, the official changes must come from the office itself. It carries huge weight symbolically. The family's attorney said of Osborne's turnabout, "Finally, the issuing pathologist has changed his position 180 degrees. It's consistent with what the Greenbergs have been contending all along." He called it a tremendous and courageous statement by Dr. Osborne, albeit lamenting that the only thing unforgivable is how late it came. It should have come earlier, but we are grateful that he has done the right thing. So there is an official reopening of the case following the settlement and Dr. Osborne's statement. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office announced that it would reopen the investigation. An independent review of the autopsy file is to be conducted, according to the city's law department. This essentially means a new set of forensic eyes, and perhaps a panel of experts will look at all the evidence and potentially issue a new finding on the manner of death. As of mid-2025, and now, when we're recording, the review is ongoing. The Greenbergs and their lawyer are optimistic that this time, with all the facts on the table, the outcome may finally be a ruling of homicide or at least undetermined instead of suicide.
If it's undetermined, will they still reopen the investigation?
They should.
Okay.
To then determine if it's a homicide.
Okay.
Better than a suicide ruling where it closes the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. The family feels like this is a major step towards justice. More than anything, that vindication is most meaningful to them, their lawyer said, referring to Dr. Osborne essentially validating their concerns for 14 years.
Such a long time.
To clarify, Ellen's death certificate as of now, 2025, still officially says suicide, but the tide has turned. The very professionals who once stood by that finding have reversed course. As a result, Ellen's case is effectively active again. It may not be an open homicide case in the criminal sense yet, but it's no longer a closed matter either. The hope in the Greenberg camp is that if the ME changes the manner of death to undetermined or homicide, then law enforcement, perhaps state or federal, will actively investigate this as a homicide, finally trying to answer the big question. If Ellen didn't stab herself, then who did?
I really wonder if they have anything saved.
Me too.
I hope
to look at.
I hope so too.
That's so hard because, I mean, it's so great that they reopened it and that they're looking at all of that again, but it's so frustrating that it took this long and it took that much on their part to even get this far.
And like, even though they took the phone and they took the cell phone or the laptops, they took it after it had already gone for a day.
Yeah.
And so, or 2 days. I mean, they demanded that they get it back. That doesn't necessarily mean they got it back that day.
Right.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
Or got
how
it
much
back
was
how
lost.
it had been taken. Man.
I like both.
Thanks. Jeez.
It's just so frustrating how much was lost.
Yeah. The family's lawyer voiced that their goal is, with this aspect of the case now behind them, they can turn their full attention to bringing justice and whoever is responsible for Ellen's tragic death.
Yeah, because that person's still out there.
That's the thing. When they close them or even, get a false confession, which I really want to cover soon. Then you've got somebody who actually did it.
Who's still out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The public has been re-energized by these developments. The story made national headlines more than once. The Washington Post ran an article titled, "Her death from 20 stab wounds was ruled a suicide. The case just reopened." People magazine and major news sites covered the pathologist's reversal. It's, like I said, extremely rare to see an official admit a mistake in this way, and it reignited hope that the truth of Ellen's death will finally be acknowledged. Yet, of course, despite this progress, the case isn't solved. If Ellen was murdered, no suspect has been charged. Over the years, suspicion has naturally centered on the one person known to be present, Sam. But he maintains he wasn't there when it happened, and there's no direct evidence implicating him. And to be very clear, he's never been named a person of interest or suspect or charged with anything related to the case. Some internet sleuths have speculated about other possibilities. Could an unknown intruder have slipped in earlier in the day? Could someone have been hiding in the apartment? We talked about if the door wasn't locked, getting in, going out on the fire escape. These theories, while discussed in forums, obviously have no evidence behind them as of now. But I do feel like it had to be someone.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
Yeah, I don't believe that this was a suicide at all.
Me either. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned in the first episode, if she had wanted to complete suicide, she had other easier ways of doing it.
Especially you said she didn't like pain. She backed off getting her ears pierced. She things like that. Like, why would all of a sudden you go from not having those thoughts or anything along those lines from what her doctor was saying? She was struggling with anxiety, not necessarily having struggled with self-harm or things like that in the past.
Or even depression.
Or depression.
Right.
Why would you complete suicide in that way?
And even if, say, you did want to use a knife, 20 stab wounds?
That makes no sense.
So excessive.
And I did hear on Body Bags, who's run by somebody that was a forensic expert and pathologist, and he's very interesting. He said some of those stab wounds could have been misclassified as 1 when it was 2, because it's really hard to tell when there's that many in the same place if they're overlapping. And so 20 is really the minimum.
Yeah.
Which is also horrific.
Well, and like, I don't know. I have a really hard time believing that you could stab yourself in the back of the neck.
No.
And cut your scalp open.
Yeah.
And then with all of those wounds, stab yourself in the chest, which is hard. You have to get through stuff to get to the heart.
Well, and I feel like if you wanted to, that's what you would do. Not, I don't know. I have a really hard time believing that this was done by her.
Yeah, same. I even think, it could have been somebody thinking she's normally at work at that time and coming in to steal stuff. Or, you know what I mean? Like
someone was watching.
An intruder. Exactly.
If someone was watching and saw Sam leave.
Yeah. And thought maybe she was still gone because she had gotten home so much earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, and the knife block is right there. She's actively using it.
Yeah.
It seems more of like a panic.
And they probably didn't catalog the apartment to see if anything was taken.
Right.
Did they?
No.
Not that I know of.
They could have. I mean, I think Sam might have reported something if he noticed something was stolen, but also
even then,
could have been in shock and not looking for things like that. He may not have noticed.
And they could have come in to steal something, been surprised by her. Maybe she was in the bathroom and came back out to finish her salad, caught them off guard. They panicked, stabbed her or whatever, and left without taking anything.
Yeah.
Could have.
Maybe when Sam started trying to get back in the apartment. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Did he ever make a statement saying that he didn't think it was suicide, or did he kind of stay away from?
Not that I could find.
Okay. You didn't mention a lot from him, so it seems like he kind of tried to stay out of the spotlight.
Yeah. And like he did, interviews and was fully cooperative.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's been made public, but I didn't see a lot, like you said, in the press or publicly stated.
Yeah.
The Greenbergs have been careful not to accuse Sam of murder. We said they defended him to police. They were behind him. They had just gone on vacation with him and Ellen, less than a month before. And really, their focus has been on getting the manner of death corrected and the case investigated properly, letting evidence lead where it may. So,
No, you're good. I kind of wondered about that with her bruises that she did have, like to her stomach. That seemed a little more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And less likely to be like I ran into a door.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of was I fell on the ice once and it was bruises in weird places and it hurt, for a long time. But the other part of that is in varying stages of healing.
Yeah.
And so that means it wasn't just one
time.
But I literally have 5 bruises on my shin to my knee and then one higher.
Yeah.
And they're in various stages of bruising because they are from different, but they're all on that side. They're all on my right side.
Yeah.
Which I thought about as I was writing this. I even have some on the back of my arm.
Yeah.
And they're all on my right side. And I don't know why.
Interesting. The stomach bruises, that was what stuck out to me.
And I sound like a klutz telling you about all of them. But, even the hanger thing.
Well, and how many times you get a bruise and you're like, what did that even come from? Like, how did I hurt myself enough to get a bruise? And I don't even know how or where or when.
Frankie's mystery.
It does happen.
It does kind of, I raise questions that there were enough for them to even note it. Because, if she had like one bruise, would they have even noted that? So for them to note bruises in various states of healing, it seems that there were a lot.
They said 11. I want to know how many were recent. Like, did 6 of them come from a struggle or from what happened?
Yeah.
And then she had 5 in various stages, or was it 11 fully in the past?
Yes.
Well, and different. She could get bruises on her stomach from someone like grabbing her and holding her during the attack. That would be interesting to know how many were new.
Did she have an unruly first grader that punched her? I don't know.
She does work with kids.
Right. And first graders, And so
someone run into her.
So much of that was missed.
That height.
Did they even ask about the bruises? I don't know. Yeah. And I would like to know how many were new versus healing, or if all 11 were old.
And maybe more of that will come out if it's open and reinvestigated and a new Emmy is looking into it. Maybe more of that information will be available at a later time.
Hopefully they did a really good job cataloging all of that at the time.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Because, and I feel like they should have, because the first autopsy was ruled homicide initially. So as he's going through, I feel like he would have been very thorough at documenting those things, because when he initially did the autopsy, he thought it was a homicide. So I would
think
good
point.
He would have been very thorough in documenting those things, because later he changed it. But when he was running it, he did think it was a homicide.
Yes.
So hopefully he was very thorough. And I think he would have been.
Yeah.
Since he was cataloging it with that thought, with that in his mind, that it was a homicide.
I think if you get someone in for an autopsy with 20 stab wounds, you have to think it's a homicide.
Yes.
And go about it that way, right?
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So then obviously noting and documenting the bruising would
be a part of that.
Are these defensive wounds? Did they come from that? So that's probably where he noted the various stages of healing.
Yeah. Well, now today, 14 years have passed since Ellen Greenberg's life was tragically cut short, and 14 years since a grieving pair of parents began a journey no parents ever anticipate, having to fight the system to defend their daughter's memory and seek justice. It's just unfathomable. They say that it's been a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. And even with that, they've never wavered. Her dad said, "I feel I'm doing the right thing. This is what a father does or should do." And he said that about his relentless pursuit of the truth. The Greenbergs have turned their incredible pain into action, ensuring that Ellen's case does not slip into the archives labeled as a closed suicide. This case is such an interesting and awful example of why asking questions and demanding accountability in suspicious deaths is so important. If not for her family's perseverance, the world would likely still assume that Ellen completed suicide in such a horrific way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with fresh eyes on the case, there's a genuine chance that the record will be corrected, and perhaps down the line, even that a criminal investigation could reignite should new evidence or witnesses come forward. And like we said, the question remains, if Ellen was murdered, who did it and why? There are tantalizing clues, but also frustrating gaps. Was there a confrontation that afternoon? Like we said, do the older bruises tell a story, or are they unrelated? What about the curious details that Ellen's dad noted? Her makeup bag laid out as if she were about to go somewhere. Could she have been planning to leave the apartment? And did something, somehow stop her? So far, those answers remain elusive. One forensic expert on the case remarked that in his decades-long career, he'd never, ever seen another suicide like this. And that says a lot. If Ellen's death is officially reclassified as a homicide or undetermined, it could open new avenues to investigate with modern techniques. Maybe they could retest that knife. Hopefully, it's been handled and stored correctly. They could re-examine bloodstain patterns. There's also the possibility that with the publicity and the time that has passed, someone with knowledge could come forward. Often in cold cases, relationships and loyalties change over time. A person who was unwilling to speak up in 2011 maybe is more willing to do so in 2025. As listeners, we might feel injustice hearing Ellen's story. I know we do, sitting here.
Yeah.
20 stab wounds and declared a suicide. It almost defies belief. The outrage that many feel is understandable, but thanks to her parents, Ellen's case is no longer just a closed file gathering dust. It's active, it's being talked about, and it's forcing changes. In fact, the case could set a legal precedent for challenging questionable death rulings in the future, which could help other families in similar agonizing situations. We want to close with a bit of a call to action. Cases like Ellen's often reach turning points because ordinary people keep the spotlight on them. Justice for Ellen Greenberg is not just a slogan. It's a movement that her parents, friends, her family, and many supporters have kept alive. If you're as moved by this story as we are, consider lending your voice. Stay informed and share Ellen's story. The more people know about the inconsistencies and the facts, the more pressure builds on authorities to do the right thing. Share reputable articles or documentaries on social media. Public interest matters. Support the Greenbergs' efforts. There was a change.org petition, like we said, that had 167,000 signatures. Adding your name can show officials that citizens care about this case. There's also a GoFundMe that was set up to help with legal expenses. Every little bit helps in now a decades-long fight like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you have information, no matter how minor, report it. Maybe recall something about the apartment complex back in 2011, or you know someone connected to the case who said something revealing. After all of these years, even a small tip could be the missing piece. Contact law enforcement or even reach out confidentially to the Justice for Ellen team on their Facebook page, which we'll link. And then finally, advocate for transparency in death investigations. Ellen's case has exposed how internal decisions can override obvious evidence. Support policies or legislation that ensure oversight of medical examiners in controversial cases. In Pennsylvania, the Greenbergs have been effectively asking the courts for a mechanism to review an ME's decision, something that could help prevent other families from going through such an ordeal. Ellen deserves justice and her family deserves the truth. As her father said in 2025, I'm hoping we're going to prove that Ellen did not commit suicide. That's what this is all about, justice for Ellen. So let's hope that justice is on the horizon, the wheels of investigation are turning once more, and Ellen's story is heard. Thank you for listening. What did you guys think?
It was very interesting and frustrating.
Yeah, I'm glad that this one ends with some hope, that investigation can move forward and hopefully they find something. Yep. It's hard to think after 14 years what they could find, but, really hopeful that there is something. And like Laura said, that they have held on to the knife and it's been properly stored. Mm-hmm. We've had other cases where the DNA has been stored for years and thankfully it was still viable.
50 years, yep.
Yeah. So it's nice to know that there is some hope for the Greenbergs and hopefully that they're able to solve this.
I know. I hope so too. I wonder how long they're going to have to wait.
I know.
For them to determine if they'll change the cause of death.
Hopefully not too long.
Yeah.
They've already waited 14 years.
Right.
It's been 6 months at this point now?
It was, about 6 months.
Because it was
February.
Beginning of February.
Yeah.
To put it on our Google alerts.
Yeah.
Oh, it already is.
Well, for you, I mean for us.
Oh, yes, for you.
And our listeners.
Yes, do keep up with what's going on with this one.
And hopefully if we can get an update, we can share that at a later time.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
I hope so too.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Sorry that we broke it into 2 parts, but we didn't want to skip anything. We find it all very important.
Yes. So much to look at. So.
Yes, agreed. If you have comments or questions about the case, you can find us on social media at Crime Clueless. If you have anything you want to share with us, you can do it there, or you can email us, crimeclueless@gmail.com. If you want to see the resources that we use to write this case, you can look at our blog, which you can find from our website, crimeclueless.com, under the contributors section. We really want to keep Ellen's story alive. If you feel so inclined, share it. We're available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Prime, all major streaming platforms.
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Or, share any of the articles, share any of the documentaries, share anything about Ellen's case. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys.